King. So here we are again with another live session, and we have an amazing guest today, and I really honor and respect this lady. She's Dr. Rani Desai, and Rani, welcome to the show Knowledge Nuggets, the Power Hour with our special guest. Hi Rani.
Thank you so much. Thanks Tejaswini. A pleasure to be here on this platform, and of course, indeed a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you so much. And I will just give a short introduction and let people know about the group. Good evening, wonderful ladies, and welcome to TransformHER, the Learning Hub for Women. And we have this Knowledge Nugget series every month where we touch on different topics on monthly basis. And from the last few months, we have been doing this initiative of the Power Hour with our special guest. And a special guest in the TransformHER in August is Dr. Rani Desai, and you'd love to know more about her just in a few minutes that I'm going to talk about it, right? So just before we begin, let me first thank our members who are a part of this group, and thank you for being a part of TransformHER Learning Hub for Women. We are so excited and so delighted that you are part of this group, and it's really an honor to have you here. Hey, but if you have never met me before, let me give a short introduction. I am Tejaswini Prasad, business strategist, transformation expert, and an author of 10 Secrets to Enrich Your Entrepreneurial Journey. And you are going to find the link of this book in your Learning Hub as soon as you join into your messenger. And that's a great thing, right? So as and when people join in, this is what they get, right? So TransformHER is an initiative to energize, empower, and elevate women to take inspired action, grow their brand, create an impact, and build a business and a career and a life they love. And my ultimate goal and mission for this group is to share knowledge, expertise, success, failures, and actionable strategies to help you achieve your goals and dreams. Right, so let's get started and let's have our guest. I'm happy to have you, Rani, and thank you so much for your time. I know you've been busy, and it really is an honor to have you here. So ladies, let me give you a quick introduction of our guest. So Dr. Rani Desai is a C-suite coach. That means she coaches all executive level, executive in the sense CXOs is what I would rather say, right? And she's a facilitator, she is a leadership consultant, and most importantly, what is important about her portfolio is that she's an investigator in matters arising out of unethical conduct. That's a beautiful space to work in, and I can just imagine how wonderful this would be. Rani, when I'm even talking about it, I'm getting goose pimples on my body, because this is so much that is required, and that requires so much of attention, requires so much of detailing. Yeah. I can really imagine what it is all about. So she's passionate about working with women leaders and empowering them, and she has a lot of work being done on empowerment. So her passion also lies in academia. That's more to do with study, academics, right, Rani? If I'm not
absolutely
mistaken, I would want you to throw light on that as well.
You're right.
And she comes with a rich experience of over 3 decades. That's about more than 30 years from various industries, and she has been heading the global human capital management and a lot of and she was the CPO, that is the Chief People Officer Deloitte, before venturing out on her own. That's in the corporate world. So people who have in the corporate world know what this is, but yes, people who have been doing their businesses and think this is so-called the top position for the human capital management or human resource management, or wherever you want to label it. And it's a very tough role. So she has been a part of an executive committee on the leadership teams. She's also on the advisory council of social enterprises, on committees of industries and commerce, and various other places. So she's also been a part of the core committee and a program leader for UN GCNI. Rani, if you could just elaborate on that, we would love to.
This is United Nations Global Compact Network, India.
Okay, fantastic. So it's the United Nations Global Compact India Network India, and she's worked a lot around organizing on the Gender Equality Conclave. So she's worked on that. So Rani, it's really a pleasure to have you here. And she actually has a special program that she has designed, which is called as ImPower. Okay, which is I empower, or it could also be I am power. So it is spelled as I M and the power goes in capital. So if you have seen the invite, you would have seen this particular thing. This is the topic. So over to you, Rani, and we would want to know a little bit about you. Tell us about your story. How did you actually get into this profession?
All right. Thank you very much, Tejaswini, and thank you very much. I'm very deeply touched by that very kind and generous introduction you have given of me. My journey as a professional has been a it started as a person. I come from not a very elite class family background, but I come from a middle class background. My father was in this profession of personnel, and he was a visionary per se. And way back in 1980s, that was his dream to say that I want to make my daughter a professional, somebody who's independent. And he would always say that the only wealth I can give you is education. So you can learn as much as you want. You can do your graduation, post graduation, PhDs, etc. And I will be there to support you. But don't expect me to leave any property and wealth behind, so to say. The only wealth I can give is the education. So that's how, and with his motivation, his vision, I did my post graduation from Tara Institute of Social Science. And then he urged me and motivated me to do my law, LLB. Thereafter, I did my master's in law. And much later, I think about 2 years ago, I completed my doctoral thesis. So the journey went on the education front. But I entered into the corporate world. And in the corporate world, I have the advantage of being in a pre-liberalization and post-liberalization era of India. So I've seen a lot of changes in the field. And the approach to the human capital or the talent, so to say, the employees and the workforce that comes in, I've seen a lot of change in the approach from a reactive mode to a proactive mode, from a kind of a very authoritarian kind of approach to a very collaborative approach. And my different experiences with different industries, where I worked with manufacturing, I worked with automobile industry, I worked in a large part of it in the IT industry. And when I say IT, it has been with very niche IT software product end-to-end development, niche areas and so forth. So those, and my last assignment was with Deloitte, which is a big four. So I've seen a lot of these transitions happening over a period of time. And through my journey, I also experienced my own transition as a woman professional. And what was needed there was to keep moving on with the changing environment and the changing atmosphere that was on. So that's a little bit about my professional background. My personal background, a little bit. I'm married. I have a daughter who's into medicine. She's studying in Europe. My husband is into medicine. And interesting life I've had on personal front as well, with a lot of excitement happening all the time.
That's great. That's nice. Where it comes from, I believe, is getting into this profession is something which triggered from your father, is what you said, right? That's where it is. Wonderful, wonderful. So Rani, you have been actually working with a lot of women, and you work on empowerment, and that's a special program that you have. So what are your thoughts on women and how important is it, as far as the empowerment really goes, and what type of women do need such type of empowerment?
Okay. So, Tejaswini, when we talk of empowerment, I mean, what are those words laid in there? In that, there is M, I, and that's how I've come out with this I am power. I am power. And I would like to stick to the first part of it to say I am power. When I say I am power, it is, when I do my work with the women, I notice that most of the women forget that they are themselves a power.
Mm.
Okay. And when we say I am empowering myself, what are those things that help me to empower myself? Do we even have an environment which is giving us that power? Answer is not necessarily. Majority of the time, that environment which empowers a woman in the house is not available. Uh, and by that, I don't really mean that some may get a little offended when I'm making this statement to say that, we have been treated very well. We have been kind of, how can, you make a statement of this kind? But when I say power, is it giving us the necessary uh, enablers to take decisions, to give certain, that respect in the family, that status in the family, where we are a part of the decision making, or somebody else is making decisions for us. What are we there to take the risks? Do we take the risk, or we are inhibited from taking the risk? One second, could you please close the door? Okay, and so this is what I call as power. What are those things that go into a power? Somebody who has the decision making, somebody who can take the risk, somebody for who can stand up and say, I made this decision, and somebody says it's okay if you have made the decision. But this kind of an environment is something that does not really vest necessarily within our own ecosystem, and at outside and internally and externally.
Yeah.
Although things are changing slightly, but they need to change much more drastically. And by that, I mean what that is the empowerment is what is my definition.
Okay, that's great. So basically, I know I have been working with a lot of women, and so when you say empower, somehow I have a feeling that they have this type of empowerment somewhere inside of them. Okay, it's just that they need someone to push them to be able to show that empowerment that they have, right? And I think that's the beauty of the work that you have been doing, because we need people who can really show that, okay, this is what you have to do, or probably yes, you are
Yeah.
capable of taking those decisions, right?
Yeah. There are so many stories, Tejaswini, in our own society, and when we look around us. I
Hmm.
mean, you look at the nature. The nature gives us those stories. You look at the animal kingdom. It's in the elephant's tribe. It's the woman who's the leader. The woman elephant, female elephant who's the leader. There are so many stories, and we forget those stories ourselves. And yeah, like you rightly said, that needs to be somebody to give that nudge and push. I was watching this movie Shakuntala Devi,
Hmm.
huh? The Hindi movie which Vidya Balan has acted in
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
What a lady! I mean, she was way back. She was born in 1930s, and the way she went by herself in 1955, 54. She went to UK. A lady who was genius, who went with couple of pounds in her pocket, and only ability she had was, in the God gift that she had, and no clue of the language. But
Yeah.
what did she do? She had the courage to go.
Yeah.
She said, I don't care for the society. I don't care a damn. I'm independent. I'm myself and I want to go. There are so many such examples, but we don't really look at those examples. Let me give you and for that you don't really need to be educated. Shakuntala Devi was not educated. Let me give you another story of a woman. Today she may be around 80 years of age. Okay, but she came from, and this is a story I have given in my LinkedIn post, in my article in the LinkedIn. For details, you can definitely look at that story. But this story is of this lady who got married very, very young as a kid, and she went into a family which was a community of fishing community. But where she went in the house opposite her, she used to see this family. This family was of a doctor. She would see this doctor picking up the son, sitting in the car, going every day, dropping the child. Wife would be standing there and weighing out. But this young girl who was married in that family, that was the thing for her. And she said, I'll make sure that none of my children remain uneducated. They will all be educated. And trust me, Tejaswini, she has got 4 sons, and
Okay.
all those 4 sons are all highly educated. There is one who's a doctor who worked with my husband. There is one who is a chartered accountant, one who is an engineer, and one some or 2 engineers, and all of them educated, all of them in the corporate world. And that lady herself was so wise that she would tell her husband whenever they made little money out of the fishing, she would make sure that she invested them in the little properties around. And in the prime center in Bombay, if you are aware of Mumbai, in Sign area, she created wealth of property, and those are like the kind of padas as they would call in the olden days, the padas. And those padas are now broken down, and there are huge apartments that have come up. And she for herself has got some 6 flats out there. And that lady today is about 80 years of age. What did she do? She did not reconcile, or she did not sit quiet, but saying that, okay, I'm married. But the point is that she took that little step, and that is a differentiation which women have got to understand. They have got to realize, and they have got to create that niche for themselves by giving a little nudge. Had it been easy for her? I mean, for someone to say in those many years ago, in a community which is in a different background, to say I will not have my children fishing, but they will be all educated. There was a lot of there would have been a lot of resistance from the family.
Yeah.
She took that step, and that nudge is what I would say the women need to get for themselves.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, with the changing times, yes, there is a whole lot of people who are there, and of course, there are a whole lot of people who are not there. So,
Not
there,
there.
there's support required on both the ends, actually speaking. So, people who are not there, like the story that you just narrated, is for people like so many years back. Getting that thought and getting there is absolutely something,
Fantastic.
it needs
Yeah.
a lot of courage. And I know the point that you're talking about was more of the courage. And you know what, I feel it's very easy said than done, because people can talk about, yes, being courageous and all, but it really takes a heck of you to be able to really be there, show up as courageous, and do things what are actually not in the known waters for you. So it definitely takes a lot of courage. And courage is something that, building that courage muscle is not something that just comes out from reading or whatever. It just needs you to take that action that is required, right?
So,
Right, Rani? Yeah.
And, and more importantly, Tejaswini, I feel a lot also the where it starts with our own self-esteem and self-pride.
True, true.
Once the woman starts respecting herself, once the woman starts loving herself, all of these things start coming and making it, and it happens. Many times I ask the women I'm working with, I ask them, do you have the skill to negotiate with your family? And I think each one of us need to have that skill of negotiation. And when I say negotiation, it's not in a very negative connotation, it's in a positive connotation. To
True.
see that, and when we're negotiating, it is also expressing our own point of view. And to say, and if there is no opportunity that one is getting, to say, hey, hold on, I have a point of view, can I please express it to you? Yeah. So those are the kind of conversations that the women need to have with the men folk or the family members. In one of my assignments where I was working with this a little senior lady, and she was from corporate world, and she was talking about many things, and it was the first meeting, and I was just listening to her. She was rambling. Eventually, I went in. I asked her. I stopped her, and I said, "Can you do one thing for me?" She said, "Yes." What is it? I said, I want you to now next, I said, our conversation next will be after 10 days. But in these 10 days, I want you to sit with your family members, which means your husband, your child, she had one son, child, your mother-in-law who's living with you, and spend that time with them to say that how has your journey of these 12 years been in that family? And what is their expectation from you? And what is the kind of where you can do better? And when we had the next conversation after 10 days, she said, Rani, I'm so thankful you made me do this because there were so many things that I had missed out. But now I'm now aware of them, and I was also able to put across my point of view and clarify a few gray areas which were there. Or
Super.
things that I took for granted even with my husband, I have now realized that I really should not be doing that.
Mm.
Or with the son. I mean, she had a very young son, and like a typical mother, over-caring mother, and the son, she was always after him. Do this, and don't do that. And then he said, Mom, please, understand, I'm now 6 years old or 7 years old. And please understand, I know I need this little space for myself. And that gave her little few insights. So many times, the women have to be, one is being aware, self-aware about ourselves, and also being aware of the people around. But that can happen when we have our own self-awareness so high that we start loving ourselves.
Mm.
When we love ourselves, when we have self-pride for ourselves, that or everything changes, because when we respect ourselves, we start respecting others as well.
True. True. I think that's the first step towards, taking yourself to that empowerment level. Absolutely. Great. I think that exercise was pretty exciting, and I'm sure there's lots that would have come out of it, and she would have got a lot of inputs, because that's when people start matching up, to say that, oh, okay, this is
Another
required or
thing,
not.
the interesting part is, Tejaswini, I also noticed one more trait. Women, many women, they keep talking about somebody else. There was another a lady who kept saying, I'm doing so much of work, and my boss doesn't, and the boss, when she went to CEO, the CEO who was a lady, she doesn't recognize, and I'm doing all the work, my boss takes the credit, and the CEO doesn't notice, and this, that, blah, blah. And she was so agitated about it. So I said to her, in what hierarchy do you come in the hierarchy grade from the CEO level? She said, I come, in the fourth level after. I said, do you even realize that is she even aware? Is she even aware of you? Has she even noticed you? And you are talking about her, and you're talking how she should be when you are not even working with her or
True.
in touch
Before,
with
like,
her.
down the line, you have no clue what's happening at the top, right? Yeah.
And you were talking about rambling to say that she's not doing this, but she's not even aware of you. So I think you should let go. I said you let go. And now the real mantra in the corporate world is to make your boss successful. When you make your boss successful, your work will start getting noticed, and your boss will become your sponsor.
True. True. Very true.
And then it hit hard. She said, why am I wasting? I said, how much of energy you're wasting, unnecessary negative energy. She realized that she stopped it. And I said, there is something called as let go. And in our own lives, we have to let go.
True.
Let go of many things. And that, when you let go, actually you're making yourself more powerful because you're not carrying your baggages.
True.
And
True.
that comes with humility, and that comes with trust. Humility and trust are the other milestone, key cornerstones. When we talk of humility, I think as every woman should be, it's okay to say I don't know, right? Many
Yeah.
times, what we mistake humility for, and I'll give you an example. The biggest challenge women have is that in the office space, somebody appreciates their work, or even in the external environment, somebody, say a client appreciates them. They're very shy of taking those compliments.
Appreciations. Mm. Yeah.
They say, no, 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 it's okay. I mean, I just done my bit. It's nothing very great. Why? Accept it with grace.
True.
Say, thank
True.
you very much. Yes, I appreciate the fact that you recognize my work. and the hard work that I have put in. Your encouragement and appreciation is really an encouragement for you, and I really appreciate it. That,
Absolutely.
yeah. And this is being humble, you are nice, but it doesn't mean that you have to fall back on the feet and say, no, 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 don't say anything. That's not it. Yeah.
Yeah, true.
The other part which the women always feel is in the work environment or even in the external environment when there is a network that's happened and there is a friendship that comes up, there's a relationship that gets built.
Yeah.
But if they say that if I have to take advantage of this relationship of mine for my health, then they start feeling guilty about it. You get the point?
True, true, true. Women are very reluctant to ask for help at times. Yeah.
Amongst the men folk, and there are research studies, there are research work that is gone in. Men folk don't feel that way. Men folk says, "ठीक है यार, तू मुझे आज help कर दे, मैं तेरे को कल help करता हूँ." But the women will say, "No, yeah, I've got a relation. How can I ask for help for myself?"
Yeah.
And this is something that really takes them back.
True, true.
But when we talk of humility, it is vulnerability. It is accepting to learn from others, accepting to understand to get to know more from others. And that is something without saying that I know everything. It's not that. And that is where humility comes into play. Accepting, if you have taken wrong decisions or if you have made a bad decision, accepting it gracefully. Those are the kind of traits and qualities that are required today, which actually help you in growing into and becoming a much better person.
Absolutely.
And trusting people. And trusting. There would be a lot of situations where the trust has been hit. In fact, I have been victim of such such situation where in one of the organizations I was working, my entire team in one of the locations, they actually created a coup against me. Yeah, actually, literally. And I was betrayed. I was betrayed by them. But did it make me lose my faith in people and my peer members or my group members, team members? No.
Not really.
Okay. No, let go. I mean, one instance is not really the rule for everybody across.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think women in leadership roles in the corporates definitely face this type of a thing that you're talking about. And if there are professionals out here who are listening to this or are working in corporates and are handling teams and all, I'm sure you'll be able to relate to what Rani is saying, and it does happen. And I think the point that she has brought up is extremely important, of letting go and let yourself really shine out when things are you're not okay, because you know what you're doing and you're doing is right. So absolutely fantastic, Rani. I can so relate. Of course, I've put about 15 plus years in the corporates, and I do understand when it comes to certain roles that a person plays. Yeah.
Yeah. And true. And unfortunately for women, it's much worse because we take it everything to heart. Yeah. But the idea is let go. And that helps in personal life and in professional life as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Bang on. And it really helps. And yes, ladies, so all of them who are listening here, letting go is the most important quality to be able to empower yourself, self-empowerment. You don't need any other people to really push you through in that case. Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah. That's great. So you have any specific inputs for, like you've already given a couple of things like the courage, the letting go attitude. Any specific thing that you want to really throw light on as far as after working with so many women that you have already done? What is it that is a typical trait that you have seen most of them, and what is it that a person really needs to overcome on?
So one of the biggest weakness I find is or rather two. One is two weaknesses that women have. One is in networking.
Mm-hmm.
They are very bad in networking. And the second one is that we do not want to become role models. Okay. So in one of the conferences where I was a panel member, for a discussion, one of the women got up and she said, "If I have to be a role model in my
Mm-hmm.
office, in my office for my team members, how should I become a role model?" So my answer to her was that, can you be two different persons, one at home and one in the office? So do we question ourselves and say, am I a role model to the other daughter-in-laws in the house or the family? Huh? Am I a role model as a sister-in-law? Okay. Can I become one such role model that in this family she is the pivot in the family? So why are we looking for these examples to become role model only in the office space? So once again, we kind of become very, very disintegrated.
Mm.
My request is, be that one person. Be one person. You can't be different persons everywhere. So to start with, when you start loving yourself, start respecting yourself, have those ideals, those values in whatever role you're playing.
True.
Then even if you're an entrepreneur, what kind of an entrepreneur or a businesswoman you would like to be? Somebody who's a very, very an entrepreneur of high values that the clients recognize and say, oh my, yeah, she's really of high value. Her ethical standards of doing business is very good, and therefore I'm doing business with her. The same standards have to be in the house. Same standard for a corporate woman, for a corporate lady, and that is one of the reasons why I was successful and I was appreciated as an investigator.
Mm.
You know, to keep that ethics high, values high, and everything. So that's one thing that I would really want women to say, that you can't disintegrate yourself, but be one.
True.
And I would even request you to go through my LinkedIn article where I've written being one. You know, this.
Mm-hmm.
So that is one part. The second, now this is on the personal side, the softer element of our being. On the other side, as professionals, whether we are in corporate or as our entrepreneurs, the biggest drawback that we as women have is we don't really network.
Mm.
Okay? We don't really network because not for any reason, but because of our own inhibitions
Mm.
and because of those couple of things which have been instilled in our minds from the younger days. Uh, for example, are we comfortable going for a cup of coffee with a male client? Okay. I'm just putting these questions for the viewers to answer. Are we comfortable? If given a choice that one has to go home for an event or vis-a-vis a professional event, what is it that you would choose? How comfortable are we in when we get a business card to pick up the call to next day and say, hey, it was great meeting you, so and so, Mr. So and so.
Mm.
Are we comfortable there?
Mm.
Are we comfortable, having met somebody and established a kind of a relationship? Are we comfortable in saying, hey, you know what, I'm having a little problem here. How do I go about and resolve it? Are there any experiences that you can share? Okay. So, and if it's a male candidate, now this is everything I'm talking from a male candidate's perspective, including many times we have our own mental biases coming when it comes to the women as well. The thing is, factor of competition is so high that then we say, huh, what do I ask her? You know, or what will she know? Or I know it, I'm better. But these all things, it refrains ourselves from leveraging on our own network and creating that network for ourselves.
True.
And this is where the women really lack, and that has been a consistent pattern I see, whether internally in the offices, in the corporates, or externally as well. So I think these are two things that they really need to work on, the software element, where one builds one's own brand image. What is the kind of brand I am? What do I represent? What do I live for? And what is it? And the other part on the external side is the networking side.
True, true. I completely agree with this. Networking is something that is extremely, extremely important, whether you are in the corporate or whether you are doing your own business. Networking is the key. And we should not shy away from really, going and putting yourself forward and, showcasing of what you're capable of. Yeah.
If I may add here, Tejaswini, sorry, and here the important element is that we have to accept ourselves as professionals first. Yeah. So when we accept ourselves as professionals, then all these biases, the stereotypes then fall apart. And to give you an example, way back when I was in college, right, in during my graduation days, I did my graduation in social work. I would deliberately go and all by myself, sit in a restaurant and order lunch and have lunch all by myself. But I'm comfortable doing it. I have no problems. I mean, then I had no problems. Even now, I have no problems. I have no problem talking to a male person. Each one has to ask that question: are you comfortable going by yourself to a restaurant? Today, I encourage my daughter to do that. If she says, I went alone by myself and I went to McDonald's and I had something, I say, great, good. These are the stereotypes that we have to unshackle for ourselves, and then we can really empower ourselves.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So, Dr. Vijay Goen Raj is a very, very popular, he's a guru, management guru, and he's from Duke's University. He's written a book called as Three Boxes. And he says that there are three boxes that we have. And he's more of an innovation guru. He says you manage your current realities. In the next box, you look at those things which are repetitive, which are of no value, non-value added jobs, and manage the future. So we have to look at these three boxes in very simple terms. I'm saying, look at what are we doing currently? What are our biases? What are our stereotypes? What are those mental blocks that we have? What are the things which are becoming more of shackles to us, which are not allowing us to let go? List it out. What are those things which are not worth it? There's a very nice thing Marshall Goldsmith mentioned. And Marshall Goldsmith is, I'm part of Marshall Goldsmith's MG25 India. He says a very, very nice thing that if don't talk about things if it doesn't really matter.
True.
And such a small statement, don't talk of things if it doesn't really matter. Are we getting into that? And we do have a tendency to do that more often. Look at those. Are we really giving so much of importance? Like, the lady whom I talked about, talking about the CEO, lady CEO, who is not noticing her. Or she is saying what she should be doing. Is it worth it? You do your job. That 5 minutes or half an hour that you are talking, discussing her, you spend it on what you can do.
Yeah, what you can do for yourself, absolutely. Yeah.
For yourself. So spend your energies there. And in the future, when you have decided what to let go, what not to do, what are those biases and stereotypes you don't want to repeat, write it down to say, how am I going to be in my future way forward or in my roadmap ahead? What are those things I'm going to do slightly differently? How am I going to build my own self-respect? How am I going to approach my own family members? How am I going to talk to my people? How am I going to do something for myself? I mean, first it has got to start by loving oneself.
True. I think that's a major thing out here, loving yourself. And I think it's more of a human problem than only a women problem. It's even on the counterparts. I mean, even on the male counterparts, yes, loving yourself is something a
So
lot
important.
to work on. Yeah. So, Rani, that's really great. Can you share 3 tips with our listeners today? Which would help them, take some action, some steps to really empower themselves.
I would only say, Tejaswini, that a beginning has got to be made. Hmm? And no new beginning is easy. Okay? No new beginning is easy. But it has got to be made. Only once it is done, that it gets rolling on. And
True.
then it becomes easy.
True.
The second point is that you should also know what is it that you are wanting to do or going to do. And what has helped me, I can talk for myself. Okay, what has really helped me always, Tejaswini, is it when I write down something, it helps me. Let me give you an example.
Mm.
And it's a negative example because whilst I can talk about success stories, I can talk about failures. I think I should talk about failures because that is where those are the ones which really impact you most. In one of the assignment jobs that I was in, the boss had come down from Australia. He was
Mhm.
hired as head of HR. I mean, that guy used to Australia come, and this I'm talking way back in 90s. So he was like, I know everything and all. But but he was extremely biased. And he was biased to a particular community, and I did not belong to that community. So he would actually harass.
Mhm.
And that news and that had led me to a lot of losing my own self-confidence. Okay.
True.
So it would be like, in those days, computer-based training was, I'm not in heard about it, it was not even there in India, but it was in Australia. We have to devise computer training. And one day I went to work on that. He said, no. And he thumped it, he banged the table. No, this is not what I want. So I said, okay, but if this is not what it is, can you tell me how do you do it? Or can you give me a sample? Can you tell me how to do it? No, I don't know, but you will have to do it, kind of thing. And he would shout and blow his trumpet. And it actually deterred me. And this was way back in 90s, 30 years ago. And makes a difference, right? Today, if I was, today it's different, or maybe later it was different. I would have perhaps given it back. So it led me to lose my confidence, and this happens. Most of the time, it happens. I literally wrote to myself, Tejaswini. I wrote to myself to say, I will rise like a phoenix from the ashes.
That's
I
nice.
wrote, yeah, I wrote to myself, I will rise like a phoenix from the ashes. And believe me, Tejaswini, in next 1.5 year, I worked so much, slogged so much, and the people whom he was a little favoritism was there, who were close, they let him down. They would not take additional responsibilities, and my responsibilities really expanded crazy. And in that organization, we were working 6 days a week. It became so much. Then I decided now I'm going to leave after having reached a particular level. And when I put in my papers, he said, please don't go. You are so valuable to me. Please don't go. And MD also said, why do you want to go? He was talking from a different point of view, but this man, the boss, who had made a little difficult for me, he said, please, you're such a valuable asset to me. Please don't go.
True.
Yeah. So this is how life is all about learning, but it is not about giving up. Giving up is very easy. It's not about giving up. It's about then thinking and planning in a way which is in which you can come out successfully. Emerging successfully is the key.
True. True.
Giving up is very easy.
True. True. Fantastic, fantastic. I think those are very good inputs, and when it actually comes with a real life example, it really connects, more easily. Just then saying, don't give up is like a statement, but when it's attached to a life story, it has a lot of meaning. And thanks for sharing that, because yes, we all have failures, but failures is a part of success and not the opposite of success, is what I personally feel. So that's amazing, Rani. Thanks for sharing all your views. Thanks for sharing your experience, and it's been amazing to know about the ImPower as well. If Okay, there are people who have any questions. Please start putting in the questions. So if you have anything specifically to ask Rani, we can take that up. In the meanwhile, while if there are people who want to put in questions, do so. Rani, what do you think about this Transform Her initiative that is there?
It's a very nice initiative, Tejaswini, and I must compliment you for taking it up. Um, it's more than the transform. I think what your objective and what you're trying to do is that you're trying to instill some thought and some trigger somewhere in the minds of your women participants. Because and these kind of triggers or these kind of in Marathi we call it as chimta. Chimta kara. Somebody is pinching you, right? In English we say somebody like I'm pinching. These pinches are very necessary in life. And in this whole program of yours, which is for about 45 minutes or 1 hour, even if there is one idea that somebody, say 10% of the women take each time, different women, I think your objective is served.
Fulfilled.
Yeah, it is fulfilled. And that I think is more important today, to bring it to from a subconscious level to a conscious level in somebody who acts on it. It's a great start. But that pinching is necessary somewhere.
Fantastic, fantastic. Okay, so anyway, just to tell the women out here, you can always put in your questions, and we would have that pass it on to Rani and have her answer if required, later, so that if there's anything coming up, we will put it in the comments and we should be able to answer that for you. And okay, that's really great. But Rani, just before, I have a question for you, and the question is like, what makes you successful? And out of like 3 decades of your experience, what do you think has made you successful? What is that one thing that you would want to share?
I think my failures and my successes both have complemented each other, and I will not call it a success, but it is just reaching a particular objective and goal one has defined for.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. Yeah. Success is like what you define it as success, right? Words can define anything for you, but then that's for yourself. Fantastic.
What I have, Tejaswini, whatever I have done, and like I said, I don't believe in being two different split personalities, one for office and one for corporate, and one for my profession, one for my home. But whatever I do, whether it is my own personal, my family life, my relationships, my commitments to them, my commitment to work, I really love what I'm doing. I really love it. I mean, it's so much of a passion and commitment that I have. I really love what I'm doing. And even when you love something that you're doing, it makes a big difference. Yes, what it needs to be coupled with, and there I was not smart, but I would say this to the younger generation, and you also come in the younger generation, is to be smart enough with these kind of opportunities that the youngsters have got, the platforms, the learnings, the mentor program, the sponsorship programs in the corporates, the various this thing which were not available to me. In my days, it was just not there. I mean, the whole look, the approach to women and having a woman was very, very different. And I have been in that men's world, and which was not easy in that man's world. But today, when you have those opportunities for the youngsters, whilst there is a passion and love what you're doing, also be smart to know when to showcase your work and in what way, without hesitation.
True.
And yeah, important also reading. You have to keep reading. You have to keep reinventing. the biggest asset, the biggest quality would be in being agile to adapt to the environments. And that's one point I would really like to make. One of the reasons for me sustaining for so many years out in the corporate world was because my agility, Tejaswini. I think that I would really make it a point to say, not as a success, but what is it that ensured that I was there and every time, because I was agile, I kept reinventing myself, I kept rebuilding myself rather.
True.
I mean, yeah, from a pre-liberalization, post-liberalization, from where there were unions, where there were no unions, where there was proactive, where personnel department became human resource department, talent management, collaboration. I kept changing and building my own skills. I've invested in myself in understanding what is coaching about. I've invested in to know what is neuroscience all about. Today, I'm investing in something more, much more. So that agility, adaptability, rebuilding oneself, reskilling is what helps you to grow and remain there.
True, true, true. Absolutely, absolutely. Fantastic. And Rani, we have some amazing comments out here. People saying amazing, wonderful idea of the beginning that you shared, and some of the talk that was going on. Somebody has written wonderful. Okay, that's really fantastic to know that the viewers have really liked this. And okay, so any last question we want to take up? If you want to please key in your question, do so right now. We would be closing it in a while. So if there's any question, bring it up, please. Or else you are open to post in the questions later in the comments, and then we can take that up, separately and answer them as and when they come, as and when people are actually viewing the recording. Okay. So fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rani, for being here, spending your valuable time with us and, giving the inputs, sharing.
Thank you, Tejaswini. Thank you. And so my just last closing 4 cornerstones of my work, ImPower or ImPower. 4 cornerstones. 1, self-aware, courage, trust, humility. So these are the 4 key mantras, I would say. But thank you so much, Tejaswini, for having me here today. If there are any questions that come to you independently or otherwise, do share.
Rani, that has come up is how can we develop the agility, that you talked about? How can we really develop that?
Agility, once you're okay. Agility in a very cryptically, in a short manner. What is agility? Agility is adapting to, one is foreseeing what is coming and adapting to what the situation is going to be. And in between that is the space that you have to create those skills which is required for the forthcoming situations. So to give an example, this was about 15 years ago when coaching, learning, training and development was becoming learning and development, where it was said that learning it's not about training people, but it is helping them to learn. And one of the things of learning also comes through coaching. And when we talk of coaching, it is typically individual coaching, but there is also something called as group coaching. And those group coachings are customized, specific, specified. When that was coming out as a trend, I immediately switched myself and I invested in myself to learn more about coaching. And these kind of little things that I went doing helped me in being with the time and being relevant. So agility is also about being relevant with the times. Otherwise, many of my generation people, HR professionals, are not in the corporate worlds as the change happens. So agility, how does one build it? Know what is happening, know what is coming forth, and in between that gap, know what you need to do to build yourself for the future.
Super. So Vishakha, does that answer your question? I think it's Vishakha who's put up this question. Okay, fantastic. So there's a little lag between when we talk and it actually reflects on Facebook, and then when people ask and they really answer to it. Okay, Fantastic. Thank you so much, Rani. It has really been pleasure. We are
Thank you,
almost
Srini, and compliments to you once again. Keep up the good work. You're doing fantastic work for the women fraternity. Continue to do good work.
Thank you and see you soon. Bye. Thank you everybody for watching and keep watching these series and get inspired through all the guests that we have here. Right. Thank you so much. Bye.